I'm here to document another Destiny L. Apparently, he got destroyed by Piers Morgan, and I just learned of this. So let's get right into the content. Okay, so this aging host over here, Piers Morgan, is lauding Donald Trump. Let's see what he says.
As he crushed Nikki Haley in the Republican primary in her home state of South Carolina. The former president didn't even need to turn up for the results, choosing instead to give another one of his barnstorming rally speeches to the Conservative Party Action Conference.
I was literally right here. Mind you, I was like 200 feet away, but I did see him in person, and it was a great speech, folks. Let's see how Destiny attacks this great guy.
And as usual, he didn't hold back.
A vote for Trump is your ticket back to freedom. It's your passport out of tyranny, and it's your only escape from Joe Biden and his gang's fast track to hell. And in many ways, we're living in hell right now.
See, confidence when he talks, that is so prescient and important for politics, folks. It's got to be, he's sending you to hell. Okay, would Biden really say that? No. So, and who's losing and winning this election thus far? We'll see.
Joint polls suggest Trump is on track to beat President Biden in November's election. So can anything stop him? And what will Trump the sequel mean for America and the world? Here's a debate with one of Trump's most vocal critics, the hugely influential YouTube political commentator Destiny, and the host of Fearless on Outkick, Tomi.
The wall has not been nice to Tomi Lahren. Now, I saw her in person at my university like 2 years ago. She had a speaking event. And I will say that she was way hotter 2 years ago. What the hell happened, Tammy? It's crazy.
Lahren. Okay. Destiny, you voted for Joe Biden last time. I think it's safe to assume you won't be voting for Donald Trump this time, but are you comfortable voting for Biden given the state that he now appears to be in?
Every time somebody attacks Biden on his senility, I feel like that is a stronger indictment of Trump's own failure as a president. I do.
What? Yo, what? Huh? Bro, what the hell is he cooking? What?
Agree that Biden definitely seems to have slowed down in his older age, but I mean, he passed.
Bro. No. See how facetious he is when he talks? He says he may have slowed down in his own age. That is not slowing down what we're looking at. Americans today are really viewing and spectating the most egregious sort of dementia-ridden person we could ever fathom in office. Realistically speaking, it's like, honestly, it's insane. When we're talking about, for instance, Joe Biden's salinity, you've got to be talking about also how he'll go on a speech and he'll forget what he's talking about. Oftentimes, he'll ramble on about other things in incoherent styles that aren't even entertaining, and, will misremember things all the time. I mean, the most recent example I can think of a couple of weeks ago was when he replaced al-Sisi as being president of Egypt to being prime minister of Mexico or whatever have you. I mean, it's an insane thing to forget as a world leader, and it's all the more obvious that he has dementia, like legit, obviously signs of Alzheimer's. Destiny's going to say he's slowing down. That's not slowing down, folks. Like, for example, you wouldn't say, oh, well, the car's slowing down. A car slowing down due to age and wear and tear would be like, oh, well, instead of going 80 miles an hour, it goes like 70. Okay, well, you can still use it. But a car like Joe Biden, the analogy would be like, oh, it's slowing down, is Destiny, this used car salesman. It's like, no, actually, this used car, like every 20th mile, it'll hiccup and stop for 10 seconds on the freeway. Or actually, in fact, the lights don't even work on it. Or in fact, actually, it drives in reverse sometimes. It just forgets where it's going. Imagine if a Tesla car did that even. Not even a used car, but a Tesla. You'd die, okay? So talking about, oh, it's a slow, oh, he's just slow. No. He's losing it completely. It's a completely different thing to say, just entirely.
Passed so much more legislation than Trump. I think our foreign policy aims are better than they were under Trump. And I think the way
that is okay. First of all, two major things. He's gotten a lot more legislation passed than Trump. That's a facetious thing because obviously executive action can trump legislation oftentimes. Okay. Who made the most amount of executive orders? I believe it was Barack Hussein Obama. Okay. Destiny would be one of those hegemonic like Obama, D-writers. And you know what? He did a lot of executive action and not so much legislative outside of maybe Obamacare. And that was one. Now, with Joe Biden, he did the CHIPS Act. Okay, fine. And guess what? Most of that money hasn't even been spent, by the way, okay? So the CHIPS Act has not been has appropriated the funds, yes, but the spending isn't even there because we don't have enough qualified chip manufacturing workers, and we're importing these people from the third world, importing them from Taiwan at best. Well, what does that say? We have a Democrat in office spending trillions of dollars on stuff that he doesn't even know what to spend it on. Imagine if you said, I need 100 cars repaired, so I'm going to appropriate 100 grand for the mechanics to fix them, yet you don't even know who you're going to hire to fix the cars. And so now we're importing Pablo and Jose, and you know what? These people are going to have their kids on welfare, are going to have their kids on ESL, stuff that costs money, and they're injecting not too much in revenue. And by the way, when it comes to Destiny, again, facetiously implying that, oh, this guy, Donald Trump, is worse. How exactly?
older age, but I mean, he passed so much more legislation than Trump. I think our foreign policy aims are better than they were under Trump. And I think
again, facetious. So he talks really fast. I have it on 1.5 speed because I'm, they say I'm on Adderall. I'm really not. I wish. But listen, people that are keeping track know that when he spews BS, it's very obvious. So for instance, he tries to talk his way out of it, but he basically gives up a major concession inherently in what he just said. Okay, so when it comes to, for instance, him saying that Joe Biden's foreign policy aims are better than Trump's. Notice that he said foreign policy aims, not even achievements. Again, we're talking about who are you going to elect? This guy who got stuff done like Trump or somebody like Biden who has aims, okay? Having aims and doing something else is just a completely different discussion to have. Yet he's passing it off as if, oh, Joe Biden did a lot on foreign policy. No, he's saying, I just agree more with Joe Biden on policy, even though he didn't get any of it done, is basically what he's implying. And people won't catch that. Tomi Lahen actually flinched, and so she can tell the BS, but most people listening, the GGG people, just don't understand that.
The way that he manages the rhetoric and the overall attitude of the country is way more responsible than Trump as well. And he's not facing 90+ criminal indictments. So
that may well be true, but
okay, that's coming at the face that he literally just got a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court, by the way, after this video came out, where apparently, you cannot get rid of Donald Trump off the ballot. Okay, so this huge Hail Mary by the far left activist courts basically failed. Yes, so the Colorado proposition that got Trump off the ballot over insurrection. Okay, that sort of thing got stampeded out. Okay, 9-0 majority. It's actually beautiful to watch. So we have this going on. And what's also just really, really egregious by Destiny is that he's saying, well, I don't want somebody who has 90 on charges. First of all, snitch behavior. Like, okay. And also, again, is he going to actually be disqualified? Like, who cares if he has all these cases? I mean, how is that a deal breaker? It's like saying, I want a one-night stand, but I don't want a girl to have a lot of baggage. It's like, well, why does the baggage matter if you're spending 90 minutes in a hotel room? I mean, this just doesn't make sense.
But the reality is perception is often half the battle of an election campaign. The perception is that Donald Trump is a little bit younger, but has twice the energy, twice the dynamism, and all the stuff that's being thrown at him, far from defeating him, as is usually the case with politicians, has empowered him and made him stronger. What are the Democrats going to do about that come November?
This is so unprofessional, by the way, that he's looking to the side and all this. And, this sort of unprofessionalism is actually, and it's ironic I say that and mispronounce it, but unprofessionalism, it's really apparent that it's not working out for Destiny. And he's everywhere. He's going everywhere on these debates, these shows, interviews, talks to Ben Shapiro. Okay, great. He loses to Ben, by the way. But even beside the point, he has gained 8,000 subs in the last month. Okay, do you really think that's really appropriate given how much you've seen of Destiny recommended everywhere on these podcasts? He's only gotten 8,000 subs, folks. He's gotten 2.5 million views on Social Blade. Okay, 2.5 million views on his YouTube channel. Only 8,000 subs out of that. Really? Okay, that's insane. That's what, 30,000 views per subscriber? Or is it 3,000? Anyway, it's egregious. You should be getting a subscriber every 400 views. He's getting it thousands per one subscriber. I mean, it's a horrible ratio. People are hate watching Destiny. He's not actually growing. It's insane.
I think all Democrats can kind of hope for is that the perception of the economy continues to increase. Consumer sentiment is starting to climb again. I think that Trump is also stumbling into a few misspeaks on his own. I think there was that clip of him mixing up Nikki Haley and Pelosi. There was him talking about, I think it was the deserts of Vietnam. Both of these guys are definitely...
Look, that is, again, a cope. Okay, sorry, not gonna work. Okay, if I say a guy who's missing both his legs because he keeps tripping over barbed wire and is insane, and then you say, well, I mean, you're also clumsy, Lalo, because you fell down a flight of stairs one time 2 days ago. Okay, there's a demarked difference. There's a huge gulf, and he's gonna pass it off well, they're both losing a step. No, man, really? I mean, it's like comparing a stripper to a sorority girl. I mean, yeah, obviously the sorority girl has excesses, but are we really going to compare these?
I'd say hating their older age, their golden years. So I don't know if Trump is going to be free of any of the misspeaks that Biden has found himself stumbling into recently as well.
Well, Tomi, let's just play a clip.
Also, it's not misspeaks. It's literal mental illness and, defects of age. It's not even oh, I'm misspeaking. It's not like a Freudian slip or a stutter even. No, it's worse. He's literally mentally not even there. Folks, it's that obvious. Is there going to be a debate in 24? Let's be fucking honest. Probably not. Why? If it's just a little bit of a mistake talking. Really? Okay.
This is of Trump doing his Biden impression the other day.
When I imitate Biden, who can't find the stairs ever, he goes like this. Thank you. Where am I? Thank you. And then he goes.
This is actually legit. I saw this in person.
And then.
That's not just slowing down. If you don't even know where you are physically, temporally, in the great scheme of things, in a 3D realm, you don't even know where you are in a room. then that's not even a mental slowdown. That's a mental complete feltoning. I mean, it's like the computer isn't even working. Yeah.
You see, Tommy, the interesting thing with me about Trump, I've known him a long time. I look at him, warts and all, good, bad, ugly. There's plenty of all of that with Trump. But his supporters love him. And one of the reasons I think that he's so popular with so many Americans is because he makes them laugh. And I watched that speech the other day. He was very funny. Not always, and some of it, as always with Trump, some of the hyperbolic rhetoric was a bit alarming. But actually, he was an entertainer, entertaining the crowd. That's why they like him. That's why they vote for him.
They like him because he has charisma. I like him because he has charisma. I also like him because when Donald Trump was my president, the economy was doing well. We ended endless wars. We started no new wars. There was relatively peace around the world with Donald Trump at the helm of the United States of America. People didn't like what he tweeted. People didn't like the way that he spoke. Maybe they didn't like the way that he dressed or the way that his hairstyle was or his fake tan. But none of that mattered because the United States was doing well. Our border was secure. The world was a better place with Donald Trump at the helm. And when Democrats talk about Joe Biden and they say, oh, he's slipping a little bit, my goodness, we know that they are obviously gaslighting us because we can clearly see that Joe Biden is not just slipping. He was slipping in 2020. He has slipped all the way now that we're in 2024. And it's not just little misspeaks here and there. Everybody has misspeaks. They mix people up. For Joe Biden, you have a special counsel report that quite plainly says we can't go after this man for his classified documents because he's a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That says it all right there. Maybe we can't indict him 96 times. We can't charge him with 96 things because he simply is not cognitively there enough to be able to withstand it.
That is okay. That was actually a good. Oh, wow. Whoa. Yo, E-girl dub. What the hell? That was actually really good.
The leader of the United States, that's the best the Democrats can do for their party. I'm sorry. You guys better be shaking in your boots if that's what you're going to go with in November.
I mean, Destiny, I know your view of Trump.
She's so smug. She knows she cooked him too. Destiny's like completely out of it. He's on his Vyvanse. By the way, why is he on Vyvanse, not Adderall? Like, what the... isn't Vyvanse like the Dalasto equivalent, or am I tripping? I don't know.
Hard to argue with all of what Tommy just said, isn't it? I mean, the Democrats seem to me to be sleepwalking in to a complete disaster if they're not careful. Biden does look, from here across the pond anyway, like someone who can barely string a sentence together or stay on his own 2 feet. How would anyone vote for someone given they have to do 4 years more from November as President of the United States, the toughest job in the world?
I mean, it depends on what you're pushing for. I mean, if you want to elect a comedian because he's got good charisma, then I agree that Trump definitely has better stage presence than Biden does. I think if you're a Democrat, you want to support Biden, you just have to try to stick in the realm of fact. Republicans inhabit a totally separate world right now. I just heard Tomi Lahren say that we're doing better on the foreign policy front because Trump was better for being in endless wars. I mean, he bombed Syria, he abandoned Kurdish allies, he kicked the can down the road in Afghanistan, he hit...
Cope alert. Again, so duplicitous in the way that he argues something. Okay, he bombed Syria. That's true, and that was awesome. That was a great idea. Okay. Biden would have done the same thing for one. Second of, and also, did bombing Syria at all like change the dynamic in a way that was not favorable to the U.S.? So even if Trump were a hypocrite on the endless wars thing because he bombed them one time, or it was actually two. But anyway, so even if he did, was a hypocrite, okay, does that change the fact that he was still better off than Joe in regards to foreign policy aims and objectives? Okay, so I mean that nitpick from Destiny doesn't really land, and then kicking the can down the road on Afghanistan. That's kind of true, but also, I mean, that was still better than what happened in reality, which was that we pulled out and got embarrassed. Yeah. And that wouldn't have happened under Trump. Everybody understands this. Okay.
Yemen drone strikes from us. He was still part of the Saudi-led coalition to bomb Yemen. He didn't do anything about Russia's
Who cares if he bombed Yemen with Saudi Arabia? Does that really matter?
takeover of Crimea. I mean, like, the idea that Trump was better on any of these areas of foreign policy is
Russia,
ridiculous. The idea that he was better domestically
when
he completely mishandled
Obama, by the way. That was
Obama's
Obama,
not my
my friend.
That's great. Trump still didn't do anything about it. Even if you think that Trump does have good ideas for the country, he is just...
Wait, so Trump didn't do anything about Putin taking the Crimea in 2014? What the... I mean, would you expect, like, for him to kill Putin? What are you even thinking? What? Huh? How's that even a criticism? A guy let something happen 2 years before you were president, therefore it's your fault. What? No, of course not. Are you kidding?
Failed as a leader. He's a failure of a businessman. He's a failure of a leader. He can't get people together to write legislation. Joe Biden, in all his senility, was somehow able to pass the same infrastructure bill that Donald Trump said for 4 years he was going to get done. He didn't.
That's not the same bill, obviously. Hence why most Republicans didn't vote for it, dickweed. I mean, that's just so obvious. I mean, it's not even something to debate. He passed the thing you wanted. No. If you're saying infrastructure like as a nebulous idea, then of course, yeah, he did pass that. But at the same time, you have to understand that the Trump plan would have gotten the same thing done for like a third of the price through privatization and the whims of capitalism, whereas with Joe Biden, you're appropriating a lot of funds that are superfluous at best, and also just like taking 10 years to construct everything. I mean, it's somewhat like, okay, I mean, Joe, you're going to be dead for 8 years by the time it's even halfway completed, this bill, this infrastructure being, just fruitful. And it's like insane that he's going to say this. Destiny, that is. Wow.
Donald Trump couldn't even repeal or replace Obamacare, which is what a lot of Republicans literally voted him to do. Like,
that was John McCain's fault. One. Two, again, like, who really cares? He got rid of the unpopular parts, which was the unfunded individual mandate, which was unconstitutional, by the way. And with that being said, because it had to be reconstituted, by the way, that tax was basically reconstituted by the Chief Justice at the time, Roberts. And you know what? Actually, if Trump got rid of the worst part of the bill, which at the same time was also just like a horrible idea, then how was that an L? Like, oh, he didn't get rid of it. I mean, would he have replaced it with anything better? Honestly, truth is probably not. And so, I mean, with that being said, it's not a big deal either way.
The idea that Trump is a competent leader is anything more than just a comedian or a guy that is funny one-liners on Twitter is delusional.
I mean, you can blame him for many things, but as Tomi said, you can't blame him for the takeover of Crimea because that was years before Trump came into power.
No,
See. Destiny, trying to sound smart, talks super fast, says a lot of points, but if somebody actually picks up on his bullshit, you'll realize that he'll say something completely asinine, and then you could just nitpick him on that. Most people aren't smart enough to actually pick it apart, but Piers Morgan actually got him on that. And yes, so the Crimea thing is a complete, just like a non sequitur from Destiny.
I'm not blaming him for the takeover of Crimea. I'm saying that Trump has never made a good but difficult foreign policy decision. If you look at the Doha agreement that he made with the Taliban, he kicked the can down the road. He says that he would be strong on Ukraine. The only thing he cared about for Ukraine was trying to get information about Hunter Biden.
What about what Joe Biden did in Afghanistan, which was the most shameful?
This is such cope, by the way, that he's never made a hard decision. Okay, what about the reconciliation with North Korea? That was a huge thing geopolitically. Or the the tariffs on China worth hundreds of billions of dollars. You don't think that's a big deal? He's never made a hard decision in his life. They said the economy would be in recession over tariffs on China. That didn't happen. That took a lot of balls to decide on, using the help of Robert Lighthizer as trade representative, by the way. And then even more so than that, by the way, when it comes to the assassination of Soleimani, that had a lot of implications and a lot of tripwires infused in that decision. And yet he still did it regardless with no consequences to the geopolitical stature of the United States, by the way. All this and more. Or, for example, when he bluffed and he said that we'd withdraw from NATO had they not increased the expensing on the behalf of the Europeans. They actually started paying their fair share, or were working towards it, towards the end of his first term, over a bluff that was huge and most presidents wouldn't have the balls to do. That's a series of difficult decisions he made in the foreign policy realm that he had the balls to do because he's got that dog in him. And therefore, Destiny just saying all this is just completely not true.
And disgraceful overnight fleeing of a country and throwing millions of Afghan women back to the Taliban walls. Now, you can blame Trump all you like for that, but the bottom line is it happened under Joe Biden on his watch. He was president. It was a catastrophic failure, that evacuation. So many allies and friends of the Americans were left in its wake. Many people died that day, and women in Afghanistan have gone back to the medieval dark ages. That's on Joe Biden, isn't it?
No. If you read the special inspector general report for Afghanistan, the whole reason why that pullout happened on that timetable was because of the Doha agreements that Donald Trump signed. He drew our troop levels down to historic lows in Afghanistan for when Biden came into office because Donald Trump put America on a timetable to leave that country. If Biden wanted to, he could have come in and undone that.
So you're blaming Donald Trump for a decision that was taken 8 months after he left office.
That decision was taken under Donald Trump. The timetable was established under Donald Trump.
He didn't have to stick to it. Joe Biden's a big boy. He's the president of the United States. I mean, Tomi, it seems to me that
This is cope, by the way. Okay, you know why? And again, this takes a real nerd to understand this. But if you remember, in 2008 or even before then, when there was a surge of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan under George W. Bush in the second term, he had made a pre-established timeline to withdraw from from Iraq in, I think, the fall of 2011. Okay, now Obama also pulls out of Iraq, at least like on paper with the federal troops. He pulls them out in 2011 when that was already preordained by George W. Bush. Now, who gets the credit for pulling out of Iraq? Is it the Bush administration 3 years after the fact, or is it Obama? It's Obama. So, Obama ended Iraq. Okay, I mean, well, he gets credit for that, but that was on the timeline of George Bush. But see, the liberals are trying to have it both ways, where Obama gets the credit for pulling out of Iraq, even though Bush would have done it eventually on paper, but more so also when they say that, Trump would have pulled out and it would have been just as bad, even though Biden carried out all the logistics of it. I mean, it's just completely, again, lies on lies on lies. Now, I guess Destiny either doesn't know the history of the Obama administration, or he's just hoping that people that are 20 years old like me won't understand history from like 15 years ago. But I am him, and so I just called him out on it.
Is he a big boy, Piers? Is he a big boy? I'm not so sure. He has to use like the kiddie stairs, but I just have to jump in here because I don't think anybody wanted to stay in Afghanistan. That wasn't the point. The timetable that Donald Trump negotiated, there was nothing wrong with the timetable. Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan was catastrophic. He didn't have the support that he needed. He didn't have the strategy that he needed. It wasn't about staying in Afghanistan in perpetuity. Nobody wanted that. I'm sure Democrats Democrats didn't want to be in an endless war in Afghanistan either. It was the way that Biden handled it. And every time since then, he has failed when it comes to foreign policy. Now we've got Israel at war. We've got Ukraine still and heading into year, 2.5 of war that we are still funding. The world is a much more dangerous place. And that doesn't even bring me to my southern border where we have 10 million illegal immigrants who have invaded on Biden's watch. I'm sure my friend is going to tell me that that is Donald Trump's fault as well, even though he oversaw the most secure border that we believe in American history that we know of. So there is no disputing the record. You can say that Joe Biden was able to sit there as a shadow president while things got passed through Democrat chambers, but you can't sit here and tell me that the man is cognitively well or that he's done anything on his own accord to better the world of the United States.
Well, let me ask
And,
Destiny.
my friend, you know this.
Let me ask Destiny my favorite question of all my liberal friends, which is: do you know how many illegal immigrants Barack Obama deported in 8 years?
How many illegal immigrants did he deport, or did they have like
Did he have
contact with the border?
deported, thrown out of the country?
I don't know the number of that.
Have a guess.
For when you say deport, you mean somebody that was already in the country, and then they were caught by
removed.
in the country and removed. My guess is those numbers are always fairly low. Probably less than a million. I have no idea. I truly have no idea.
3 million. Which is
What a
great-
dumb again, sophistry by Destiny. Talks fast, spends like 10 hours a day on the internet, yet doesn't know basic figures. Okay, it's common sense. And again, this was in the nomenclature 5 years ago that Obama was known as the low-key deporter in chief. That he deported more people than Bush, more people than Clinton, etc. Okay, that is part of the political nomenclature if you were actually tapped in. Now, Destiny is a sophist and he doesn't actually care about politics. He does it for a living, which is different. And so he doesn't understand that. But I mean, to say that in 8 years, Obama deported less than 1 million people is just completely out of the scope of reality. I mean, it's just such a stupid thing to say. Anybody who's looked into the border knows that there's about 26,000 ICE agents, okay? So if you were to times that by 10 people per year that they would deport over the span of 365 days, that is actually a low ball. I mean, if you deported 10 people, if your only job is to deport illegal aliens like the ICE workers are supposed to be doing, then them deporting only 10 would be like so pathetic as an effort. Yet Destiny wants you to think that, okay, well, so let's average and extrapolate this number out just to be factually correct. Okay, so hypothetically, Destiny believes that Obama deported less than 1 million people just off of his head canon. Okay, fine. So that means that there would be like 125,000 people deported per year under Obama or less. Okay, well, if that's true, well, then that would mean that basically the ICE agents deported like 5 people per year. Really? An individual ICE agent whose entire fucking job is enforcing the border only deported 5 people under Obama per year. That makes no sense. They obviously deport dozens of people per agent. Otherwise, how would it logistically even be feasible to deport half of these people? Destiny has not even the most solid modicums of intelligence when it comes to anything beyond the most nebulous surface tier arguments in regards to politics. It's insane.
Greatest number pro rata of any president in history, and earned him the moniker in Mexico of deporter in chief. And yet,
I haven't even seen the debate. See, I fucking called it. Yes, I'm Mexican. I know what he's talking about. Got him.
They never know this. They never made a fuss at the time. They were quite comfortable about that happening. And I look at what's going on the southern border now. Apparently, Biden's going down the same day as Trump on Thursday, which will be fascinating. But he hasn't been there. I don't think he may have been once before in his time as president, which is insane, given how obviously problematic the southern border has become. Whichever side of the political divide you're on, would you accept that?
Would I say that the border is a problem?
Well, not only a massive problem, but that President Biden, to date, in his tenure, has done absolutely nothing but make it worse.
I don't know about absolutely nothing but make it worse. I think one of the issues right now is Republicans are holding up funding to actually apportion more money to border security. I think that there are definitely border problems that exist right now that definitely need attention. But I think comparing it to Donald Trump, when he was able to utilize the emergency of COVID and the fact that the immigration numbers were at historic lows over the COVID period, and then to say that, well, look, he did a way better job than Biden did, where once COVID ends and then everything starts to open up again, you see a huge surge of immigrants. Isn't the most fair comparison. But obviously, yes, something needs.
That's cope. That's cope again, because even before COVID, the Trump immigration numbers were still a fraction as bad as the Joe Biden ones. Again, he's trying to beg your ignorance. He's trying to assume you haven't looked into it. He's trying to assume you don't have common sense. It's very obvious that even before COVID, that let's say in 2019, the illegal immigration problem wasn't as egregious in 2019 as it was in 2021, 2, 3, 4. Let's just be clear.
Needs to be done with the border, of course. And I hope the Republicans approve funding in Congress for something to actually be done.
Well, Tomi, that's an interesting point where I would be critical, I think, of your position on it.
And by the way, what's the liberal disposition on this issue? It's not to, well, we should deport more people, we should build a wall. No, let's just throw more funding at it again. So we're in record levels of debt. Insane. And you're like, well, actually, let's do even more. What?
Because I absolutely believe that Ukraine has got to be helped to defeat Putin. or at least hold him off. Because the alternative for the West, it seems to me, is extremely dangerous and alarming, which is that Vladimir Putin seizes large chunks of a sovereign democratic country and is allowed to keep it. And the idea that won't embolden him to just go and do the same elsewhere, I think is for the birds. I also think it's for the birds that China, looking at this, won't then immediately think about invading.
Okay, get to your point,
Taiwan.
Piers.
Well, I would also say this. If Donald Trump were our president right now, Putin would have never done that because he didn't when Donald Trump was in office. We mentioned earlier under Obama, they go and take Crimea. Under Biden, go in and try to take Ukraine. So Donald Trump, we'll just say, he started no new wars. And the world was either respectful of Donald Trump or fearful, doesn't matter which. I would also say this. We don't, on my side, when I talk about not funding Ukraine anymore, it's not because we want Putin to take Ukraine. It's because we understand that here in the United States of America, we have more problems that we have to attend to. We've got homeless veterans. We've got a border invasion of our own. So the thought of sending more money, more weapons to Ukraine.
I keep hearing this, but I find it really odd to hear any American conservatives almost saying Putin should be allowed to just take what he's taken. That would never have happened 20 years ago in American political discourse. There's been a massive sea change in conservative mentality to how to deal with a Russian dictator. But secondly, he'd all be likely speaking German. Why are we so weak about standing up to?
Oh my God, what a boomer! Oh, he's reciting the trope of if we didn't stop the Nazis, we'd be speaking German, which is just like not even true at all. But even more than that, he's trying to use that on the Ukraine and Russia, as if the Russians have even a scintilla of a chance of harming America, outside of like some ballistic missile tearing the tissue of our Iron Dome, so to speak. I mean, like our NORAD defense system or whatever you call it. I mean, it's just ridiculous to even insinuate that's even true.
He didn't launch a new war anywhere. Is there some merit to the madness, if you like?
No. People seem to want to give Trump credit for some things, like people not starting wars or people not engaging in certain types of, international armed conflict decisions. But the reality is that if you analyze any of the actual particular things that he did when it came to foreign policy, most of them were the precursors for the conflict that we are now blaming on Biden. For instance, I brought up before the round of Doha talks that happened between the Taliban and the United States. The Afghanistan government wasn't even included in those talks. If you look what's happening right now in Israel and Palestine, the whole Abraham Accords, where Donald Trump was heralded as having peace in the Middle East, the whole reason that was done, in a way, was to avoid Israel annexing the West Bank and to undermine the Palestinians there that wanted to negotiate with Israel for peace. The whole Abraham Accords completely.
As if that would have had any bearing on the war in Israel. It just really pisses me off. And again, with this like Doha Accord thing. Okay, so let's say Donald Trump didn't include the Afghani government for one in this thing, which I think is a nebulous thing to claim, but let's just assume that's true. Okay, well, beyond that. Okay, so why didn't Joe Biden reopen the agreement and say like, okay, what the fuck? Like, let's rework this. I'm a new president. Okay, no, he didn't. He just went along with it. So how is Biden any better? And, like with this savviness and whatnot, do you think the Biden executive office would have argued a better deal than Trump in 2021? No, of course not. So, I mean, that's just a stupid claim.
Cut them out of the conversation. It's one of the reasons why Hamas felt so slighted. It's one of the reasons why Palestinians are engaging in more violent activity against Israel, because nobody's ever been negotiating with them. So there's like this very superficial view.
People have been negotiating with Hamas and the Palestinians for decades. I mean, this is just obviously true. I mean, if you look at the Oslo Accord, which was when Destiny was a little kid, so maybe he doesn't know this, but I mean, I was negative 10 years old in like 1994. And the truth is that, I mean, there was a really strong concerted effort with Yasser Arafat, Bill Clinton, and others, Ben Gurion. No, that was before. But anyway, I mean, people have been going off just trying to negotiate deals and they don't figure anything out. And I mean, it's like a brother war over there, but I mean, it's still kind of crazy to think about. And yeah, they do try to negotiate all the time. It's just that, I mean, they're insane.
You can take where you can say, oh, Donald Trump was good for foreign policy because no new wars happened to start under this 4-year time period. But if you look at what he was actually setting up in any of the countries where the conflict was going on, all he was doing was setting the stage to kick the can down the road for future conflict.
What would you give? All right, Destiny, what would you give Trump credit for?
What domestically or internationally?
Anything. Give him some credit for something.
Let's see, if I had to give Trump credit for anything, I mean, our economy was strong under Trump. I do think sometimes that Democrats are too heavy-handed when it comes to things related to welfare or things related to taxation. I don't like the idea of demonizing success. I think that Republicans typically do a better job, or did do a better job, at things like patriotism or championing wealth or people that were making money. So I guess I would give Trump, general credit for things like that. I mean, I saved money on my taxes.
And Tomi, just to return the favor, can you think of something good to say about Joe Biden?
No.
When I look at my country right now, there's not a whole lot that I could say about Joe Biden. I think he seems like a nice man. He seems like perhaps a good husband, perhaps a good father, supporting, obviously, Hunter Biden. So he seems like he is.
Is that supposed to be sarcastic? What? You mean enabling?
Use the words of the special counsel, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. I don't think he's a bad person.
See, that was actually smart. Oh, dude. Oh, look how pleased this guy is. That was a great line. See, she's a lot more witty than Destiny is. I'll give her that.
I think that he's uniquely bad at this job, and I think it's time for someone to come and make America great again. And that's
I have to say, I think Destiny wins.
In one of the most exploding economies in the history of the United States, and the recovery from COVID, and there's not in all of the foreign policy guidance we have related to Ukraine and Israel, there's not a single positive thing that we can say about Biden's presidency right now.
Well, no, here's what I would say to you again.
The bull jive is insane. I mean, Tomi literally covers her face and just cringe that he even had the balls to say such a big lie.
It comes down to perception, Destiny, which is you're not wrong to say that the economy is in pretty good shape in America compared to most other countries. The problem is people in America aren't giving Biden the credit because his approval ratings are in the tank because they basically see a guy who's senile and they don't want that person to carry on being president. 2/3 of Democrats don't want him to run again. It's not even a Republican issue. His own party don't want him to.
I definitely agree there's perception issues, but I mean, hey, listen, we're in the media. The goal is to fight the perceptions because I think the perceptions are crafted here. And again,
So he concedes everything and then just says, well, I'm here to. Well, no, wait, hold on. Again, he tries to assume the audience is stupid. But what he literally just implied there was that the media forms a consensus and I'm here to change the perception is what he means. Now, in layman's terms, it means that I'm the janitor and I'm sweeping it up for Dementia Joe. That's literally it. So, yeah, it looks really bad, but I'm here to Febreze the whole thing. Okay? No. It looks bad. I can tell. I mean, I can just look at a turd and see. I mean, I can see that it smells. I don't have to even actually feel anything. I just got to say, like, okay, this looks horrible. When it comes to Joe Biden, the layperson, the cable worker, whatever, these people can just tell that Joe Biden's out of it. They can tell that he's made a lot of bad decisions, if it's even him pulling the strings. And by the way, if it's somebody else pulling the strings, then it's even more pathetic on somebody who's completely sentient and mentally there to be making the same mistakes that Joe Biden's apparently doing as the figurehead for the presidency. So I'll just leave it there.
And I question the authenticity of people that are calling Biden's job performance, into question because of his senility when Donald Trump got almost no major legislation passed, when Donald Trump kicked the can down the road on every single large issue. I also think that a lot of the perceptions of Americans right now in terms of voting for Biden and his favorability is having to do with the fact that apparently a lot of Americans aren't even sure who's going to be on the ballot. I think a lot of Americans still have questions about Biden running because of his age. A lot of Americans still have questions about Trump running because of the incoming indictments. I think as the months start to creep forward, I think we might see sentiment change, especially if the special election history over the past few years in America has been any indication about where American sentiments are feeling in terms of supporting Democrats or Republicans.
Okay, wait. So he's citing special elections as them being indicative of support for the Democrats, which really doesn't make sense because if you know anything, special elections are not polarized. They're not tracking the president. They're more so hyper fixated on the local district or state that we're arguing about. And so with that being said, I mean, at that point, I mean, what are you going to say? Oh, well, it's a special election, so it dictates the 2024 election? No, it doesn't. And again, what's more is that Destiny is saying, well, things are going to tighten more as people realize that Joe Biden's going to be the heir apparent for the nominee, and as is Trump, and that somehow will help Biden, even though people are already assuming that he's going to be president, and the nominee for president. And what's also really weird is that he's saying that the reason he's implying this in his argument, he's saying, well, the reason why Biden's polling so bad is because people are unsure he's even going to run for president. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? If people like Joe Biden and they're not sure if he's going to run, they would still pick him in a survey, in a poll, Destiny, over Trump. What difference does it make if they don't know if he's going to run 100% or not? That's so fucking obvious. Well, I'm not sure if he's going to be the nominee, so I'll vote for Trump in the survey. What? That doesn't make sense. Again, he's asking the average person watching this program to not be studied, to not know jack shit. I'm over here a college student. I know everything apparently because 80% of what he's saying is complete bull jive from the jump.
All I would say in response to that is that if you look just at the Iowa caucus, he didn't even win that in 2016. But he won it this time by a landslide. That says to me that support for Trump is increasing. And remember...
Okay, that was an extremely stupid talking point from Piers. Now, anybody with a political acumen could actually dissect him and destroy him on this. But let's see if Destiny picks up on it.
Got nearly 10 million more votes in 2020 than he got in 2016. That was after 4 years of... If you listen to Democrats, after 4 years of the most hellish presidents in history, 10 million more Americans went out and voted for him. I just want to switch gears to Tomi. I know you've got to go. Quickly about Prince Harry and what Donald Trump said about him, saying...
Okay, who cares?
Professor Norman Finkelstein and Rabbi Shmuley, I think it's fair to say you weren't massively complimentary. Let's take a look.
Oh my God. Is there any debate? Is this actually a real debate? Or is it, who the is this fucking loser? This is embarrassing. Rabbi Shmuley? Is he like a Twitter guy? How am I going to survive in a real one-on-one debate? This is just real talking speed. This is just stupid debate. Ugh.
I can do an interview, thank you.
I can't believe he's giving pushback to Norm on this debate, and he let this guy yap on the most retarded ad homs for like 20 minutes. Oh my God, but he's not going to answer it. It's just like, it's a stupid argument on so many different levels.
I don't equivocate either with the other.
Sound the incorrect use of equivocate alarm. Bro, oh my God, these are the types of posts I ban from my subreddit. We get it. Oh my God.
So that's a super unprofessional edit, and that's Destiny's fault for letting that happen. But basically, he's running a stream with like 3 different screens going on at the same time. His dysgenic ass is in the corner of the screen, very small, very disrespectful. And he's coming around with the terrible posture, being like, oh my God, cursing. Oh my God, it's Rabbi Finkelstein. What is that, man? Again, grown man, wake the hell up. You're getting destroyed by Piers Morgan, who's a felted, dejected, 60-year-old blobbering Brit Bong idiot centrist. What's going on here, folks?
A technical point, I think I was using the word equivocate correctly, though, unless I'm wrong.
I have to go back and analyze the word equivocate. Let me be clear: the stuff we do on stream is obviously way more relaxed in this environment. But the main criticism
Isn't that kind of the problem? Your stream is politics. Why can't you just wake up again, be inspired? There's like upwards of 10 to 15,000 people watching on different platforms. Destiny, wake the hell up. What is this dispassionate? I'm gonna argue with somebody on Vivant whilst also talking about Andrew Tate. Meanwhile playing some like stupid game that looks even worse than City Skylanders. I mean, what kind of Factorio? I mean, what the hell is he even playing? It's not even cool. Come on.
the main criticism that I basically have with almost all of the Israel-Palestine debates is both sides have this hyper-specific narrative that tends to omit every single exculpatory thing from the other side, and it drives me crazy. So whether it's a rabbi on here that's talking about like the innocence of Israel, or even the guy you had on right before saying like, well, Israel doesn't like to fight, we don't like to do that. It's like, really? Because Israel's taken advantage of every single military opportunity they've had in the history to expand their territory. Saying they don't want to fight is really silly. But then on the other hand, you get pro-Palestinian people who would say things like, well, Hamas can be a partner for peace, and October 7th was just in response to the horrible concentration camp-like conditions of a region of the world that really isn't even doing that bad compared to other places in the region. So I just hate how hyperbolized both sides of the argument are.
I actually don't disagree with you, and I thought Rabbi Shmuley
Centrist Destiny, brown noser Destiny,
over the top, but actually quite illuminating about him and his style of debating. I don't think he played well with the audience at all. And I had a lot of Israelis tweeting me saying, "Why do you keep having this guy on? He talks in such an inflammatory manner that it doesn't make us look good." So I think that he let himself down a bit there. And on the wider point, I kind of agree. I've had so many of these debates about Israel. It's very hard to do anything that doesn't immediately get
is it going to be a circle jerk at this point? Really?
Very hard to reach any point of consensus. You know, and I find that that's the dispiriting thing about that debate, and it may explain why the whole conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine has been going 75 years and appears so completely intractable. Nobody gives an inch.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's...
Here's where, again, he says nobody gives an inch in a blood feud. Okay, now say something profound, Mr. Famous. Come on.
On the ground in Israel-Palestine, you have that issue where both sides have basically their myths that Israel fashioned themselves as these poor people, these poor Jews that wandered into the Middle East and had to fight these impossibly huge Arab armies that had domineering and overwhelming force and power and coordination, when in reality, post-48, Israel was always in a decent position to fight, and that was pretty obvious in their performance in 48, in 67, in 73. It was pretty obvious that they had the military capability to survive. But then on the other hand, you get, the Palestinian narrative of they were a poor, dispossessed people in their lands who only ever wanted peace. I think I saw a tweet saying we welcomed Israelis with open arms. That's absolutely not true. I think that the on-the-ground narratives contribute to the conflict feeling intractable. But unfortunately, I think internationally, I think we feed into the intractability as well, because people are that conflict is so perfect for everybody to have a really strong opinion. You've got brown people and white people, you've got Jews and Muslims, you've got oppressed and oppressors, you've got Western colonial and Middle Eastern countries. Like everybody can have an opinion about this conflict because of the different parties involved.
This is literally the most like saying a lot and then meaning absolutely nothing is meant. What the hell? I mean, you can elicit a stutter from me. That's the most I can even commentate. He's saying a ton of stuff, but it literally gets to nowhere. It's like, oh, I mean, there's a lot of nuance to it. Actually, both sides are really okay. Really? Okay.
And people are so not level-headed when it comes to evaluating what's going on that they end up hyping up both sides and they...
Yeah, you're so level-headed. Yeah, the guy who says, oh, no, Joe Biden's just slowing down a little bit. Bruh, really?
Expectations to unrealistic levels, which means neither side is really willing to actually settle for a realistic resolution that might make both sides feel a little bit good and a little bit unhappy.
What do you think a realistic resolution looks like?
I think it's a multifaceted thing, but I would say that it has to be some kind of two-state solution, and both sides need to be willing to negotiate for peace, and this is the hard one, both sides probably need to be willing to sacrifice a little bit for peace. That means...
That is the most generic said you could have possibly said. Bro, that is the most generic statement you could have possibly said. What? Okay, so how do you fix something where it's already like a semi-apartheid state? You have Palestine, which is unofficial, Gaza, the Strip, and you've got Israel, which is the domineering bigger presence around a cacophony of like different Arabs that want to kill the Jews theoretically. Okay, well, let's just say that's the hypothetical we're dealing with. Okay, so how do you resolve this sort of war? What's the most banal thing you could have possibly said? And it's that. Well, I think both sides there needs to be a two-state solution, which is already kind of what we have, by the way. And then also say like, well, I think that they both have to compromise. Bro, really? It's like saying, how do you fix a marriage where it's about to dissolve? Well, I think both people need to compromise and love each other more. Or, halftime report, you're down by 10. How do you win? Well, I think they should stop scoring touchdowns and like less field goals, and maybe let's like stop them on third down. Yes. But can you say something specific? Can you say like, okay, well, this figurehead for the Palestinian team needs to agree with this thing, or this tenet of the war has to be in conjunction to this thing to have a tacit agreement, or maybe I don't know, like details, something. No, nothing.
that not every Palestinian is going to be happy with the final resolution. It means that Abbas might have to suffer, even more loss of his popularity, or whatever Palestinian leader rises might have to suffer more loss of popularity. It might mean on the Israeli side, similar to Begin or Rabin, negotiators for peace in the past, you might have to pay a political price for being a negotiator for peace, because sometimes the Israeli people or your Knesset doesn't always support you when you're negotiating peace against either Arab states or Palestinians. But the leadership has to be there, that has to be willing to suffer a setback or some loss initially for the peace agreement. And then both people need to have some kind of tolerance to say, hey, listen, we might not get everything we want on the old city. That applies to Jews and Muslims, or that applies to Israelis and Palestinians. Or hey, we might have to do a lot of land swaps in the West Bank. Hey, all of these settlements that are outside of directly near the Green Line, maybe these do need to be torn down. But yeah, the conversation, we're not even a place we could start the conversation on that yet, because people don't even know if Hamas should exist or not, or if Israel has a right to defend itself, or if maybe murdering 1,200 civilians is a reasonable response to the supposed concentration camp conditions that exist in Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, you did a debate with Jake Hugo, who's been on this show many times. In it, you said about deaths in Gaza that the ratio of Hamas to civilians killed were good ratios. But I'm not sure about that. I'll tell you why. The problem I have with the whole death rate in Gaza, especially when there's a comparison made to World War II and how many German civilians were killed and so on, is that there is a unique population in Gaza of 50% children. Now, 50% of the 2 million are under 18. That's 1 million kids running around in Gaza. And already we've seen 30,000 civilians killed, with 70,000 more wounded, many of whom are children. And that is something I've not seen in any recent conflict. And that's what makes it uniquely horrific to people.
I agree that it makes it uniquely horrific to people. I think it's really important to have a good understanding of why international humanitarian law, or more specifically, international law of armed conflict exists. I think that people have a really poor understanding that the law of armed conflict exists to make it so that the fight is even on both sides. But that's not true. It exists for two very important reasons. One is to protect civilians, and the second is to ensure that nations have a right to defend themselves. If either one of these fail, nobody would care about the law of armed conflict. I think the difficulty that Israel has right now in conducting their war against Hamas is that their cause for war, wanting to do something about Hamas, I think is undeniably righteous. That if you've got an organization that comes in, they kill, some 1,100, 1,200 citizens, and then they, capture hostage 200 more. Not only has Hamas not had a good cause for war, not only have they committed multiple war crimes in the actual commission of the October 7th attack, it gives Israel justification to attack. Now, Israel's conduct in war is a second question. It's a very difficult question to answer. When people try to evaluate if the conduct is good or bad, they oftentimes just look at the number of civilian deaths. But when you're actually evaluating from a legal perspective on whether or not attacks are good or not, the obligation for the belligerent, for the attacking party, is just to try to do what they can to reduce civilian casualties. Now, civilian casualties are tragic. They absolutely are. But Hamas also has a responsibility as the sole administrator in the region to shield their population, not use them as human shields, to make sure their population is allowed to flee, not tell them to stay in their homes when Israel roof knocks, when they make phone calls, when they drop leaflets, when they give advance notice, when they give whole region-wide text messages. Right? Israel's doing what they can, more than any other country has in any type of armed conflict, to try to warn the civilian population.
Okay, he's actually completely right here, but he's so boring.
To flee, but for a variety of reasons, they're not doing it. Some do.
How is this even on TV, man? Look how unprofessional it looks. What kind of shitty gun is back there, by the way? It looks like an anemic, anorexic version of the Olympia from Black Ops 1 Zombies.
Tons of places that come under attack, even places in the south. But I just think it's important to note that when we're criticizing Israel, it can't be on the absolute number of deaths. It has to be on things like when the 3 hostages came out and they were shot by the IDF. Those are things where you're like, well, hold on, these guys were wearing white flags. Why are you shooting these people? That's not good. It can't just be on the absolute number of casualties, because if that's the fixation, then in the future, no nation is going to consider any laws of armed conflict going to work. They're going to say, oh, well, they don't care what the ratios are. They don't care our targeting decisions. They're just upset that civilians are dying, which unfortunately and tragically always happens in the course of war.
If you were the parent of one of the 12,000 or so children who've been killed by Israeli airstrikes, would you willingly and quickly buy into a brave new world of living peacefully side by side with Israel, or would you be implacably determined to exact revenge for the slaughter of your child?
I feel like on a personal level, especially someone that has a child, I feel like I would want to fight till the end of time.
Right, well, that's my point. So that is the natural human reaction, which surely tens of thousands of Palestinian fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, grandparents, they're going to have to this slaughter of the children. And so I don't understand why Israel thinks it's not just building for itself, but potentially even bigger problem down.
Again, also, fuck Piers Morgan, because again, that's such an unfair thing to say, because that is true, but also, again, he argues like housewife, like, I need to be comfortable, I need to be pampered. Oh my God. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's so annoying. He's talking here as if like, this civilian death is so bad. But I mean, how else are you going to conduct a war? I mean, we're talking about bombing military installations within a couple acres even of like a hospital, so it's really hard for these Israelis to bomb Gaza to any considerable effect while not killing innocent people on accident. And especially when the Arabs are using meat shields and other, I don't know if it's bogus, but I mean, just a bunch of like bullshit, basically saying like, okay, well, we're going to have an arms factory, but it's going to be, with the school in there too. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then when it comes to, for example, like, oh, well, I mean, this is an unacceptable amount of casualties. Again, how else are you going to bomb people? I mean, it's just be real for a second. And let's say it's like, oh, it's 50% kids in Gaza. I mean, whose fault is that? They have a lot of kids. Okay, so what? Is that going to change anything? Really? So like, it'd be more justified to bomb Germany because they have a lower reproductive rate. Okay, and?
On the line in terms of the radicalization through deaths of children of the people who love those kids.
I understand what you're saying, but after World War II, I mean, we all got along after that in a surprisingly short amount of time, given how horrific some of the Japanese crimes were in China, given how horrific Germany's crimes were around all of Europe, or relating to concentration camps or death camps. Like, it is possible to mend those bridges. I do agree right now that Israel might be contributing towards more hatred of them, of Jewish people, of Israeli citizens in the Gaza Strip. That's undeniable. But then the question becomes, well, who's responsible for managing Israeli public relations in the Gaza Strip? If you ask an
Horrible, horrible. So he really thinks, again, he's naive as hell. He's a neoliberal. So, I mean, it explains it. But he's saying that, oh, well, the PR has a substantive difference insofar as, like, the perception of the Israeli killing, like, the children of a Palestinian father, for example, that a PR team could actually fix something. No, of course not. It can't even assuage it. Are you joking? And the Germans, the Japanese, and the victims of said regimes, they basically got over World War II relatively quickly. Yes, but it's also a really different thing, this Palestine-Israel thing is. And the reason being is because when the Germans got taken over the French got taken over by the Germans and the Nazis, it wasn't a racial issue. At least it was more so political and not racial. Okay. Whereas in Palestine and Israel, it is intrinsically a land problem, like an ancestral land thing. It's a religion thing, an ethnic, racial implications involved. So this is a thing that is generational. It's a blood feud. It's a family feud. It is very intrinsic to their own existence. Yeah. Now, the Europeans fighting over political states and borders is not really the same thing. And, when it comes to even Jews in Germany, a lot of the reason why Germany was able to rebuild is because a lot of those Jews went to America, obviously. So there was less of them to instigate violence or revenge on the Germans. And even more than that, it's one thing to have, a Nazi regime with like 30% approval rating in 1945. And have most Germans be anti-Holocaust, for instance. But then it's another thing for Hamas, where literally almost all the people there are pro-war, or at least are antagonistic to Zionism. I mean, it's, again, the analogy doesn't even work there. So again, this is only because Destiny is either facetious and or isn't well read. And I think it's a little bit of both, frankly. And yeah,
Israeli citizen, like, hey, aren't you worried that you're going to radicalize people in the Gaza Strip? What Israeli citizens are thinking of is they're either thinking of watching the video of that girl go back on the back of the truck.
Also, by the way, yeah, Japan was nuked by America, but Japan had no problems with America by virtue of it existing. They opportunistically attacked Pearl Harbor on the basis of oil assertion due to sanctions predicated on like 1939. Okay, it was that. It wasn't like, oh, we hate America, therefore. No, I mean, so they recovered, yes, because they changed politically and because it suited them. It wasn't like they had this basic racial issue against America, unlike the Israel-Palestine, where it is ethnic, it is religious, it is to the core of your existence, which is religion, of course. So again, just completely off base. Completely off base.
Where everybody's like clapping and cheering, and they're thinking, well, they hate us anyway. Or they're thinking of the Second Intifada, where there are 4 or 5 years worth of attacks from 2000 to 2004-5 in Israel. Thinking, well, they already hate us anyway in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. They're thinking of the Martyr Fund. They're thinking there are so many different aspects of this conflict that I agree Israel is giving Palestinians good cause to hate them. Palestinians are giving Israelis good cause to hate and not trust them either. And this is one of the problems that we talked about at the very beginning. The mythos runs so deep on both sides that they're both infinitely justified morally. They want to hate each other forever. But obviously, that's not a conductive road forward towards anything peaceful.
Jessica, I know you've got a big debate coming up with Professor Norman Finkelstein, hosted by Lex Friedman. That is going to be huge. You feeling ready for that?
The 3 people involved are all giants in this field. I am definitely a newcomer. I'm definitely like a YouTuber streamer person. I hope that rhetorically I'm able to hang on to the conversation. Obviously, I've done a decent amount of research and reading, but obviously the 3 of these figures involved, have a much greater background than me in this issue. So I'm not going in with any illusion that I'm the subject matter expert here. My debate partner for this is Penny Morris, and this guy knows more about anything related to 48 history of the Goes. I'm probably going to be leaning on his historical knowledge quite a bit.
Rest assured, I will be live commentating to return the favor.
I look forward to the back and forth videos and the reaction videos.
Destiny, great.
I'll try not to use equivocating correctly. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Take care.
Awkward. Wow. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so as we all know, Destiny's an unprofessional person, just has no sort of like stage performance. He has no idea or even a modicum of understanding of how to present anything. He has an unprofessional stream. It's pathetic. And what's more is that he got destroyed by Piers Morgan, who, like I said before, is an aging, bloated, British centrist idiot. And what's more, he lost to Alex Jones on gun control like 10 years ago. And even on top of that, we have Tomi Lahen, who was roasted for hitting the wall and seething about it a couple years ago. And even post-wall still would, by the way. But to keep it professional, we will avoid that. We'll say that Tomi Lahen was more witty on this performance than was Dollar Store Ben Shapiro, Gay Ben Shapiro, Destiny. And again, Destiny got destroyed by both Piers and Tomi Lahen. And what's more is that I want to see him versus Candace Owens. She would torch his I would say white, but he's like half Cuban. Anyway, so yes, Destiny lost. Huge L. Again, it's pathetic. The guy's in his mid-30s. He's been debating for like 10 years straight. How about you don't lose? I mean, look, the whole problem with Destiny is that he talks fast to get over the fact that he's not actually well read on anything. And it just doesn't work out in real life. In real life terms, it turns out that actually you're supposed to be on all these podcasts and you only get 8,000 subscribers out of over 2 million views on your channel. Turns out that you're getting a ton of hate watchers is what I'm saying. So Destiny L, Suffa Destiny. We love to see it, folks. Write this one in the books. Adios.